Good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your days to come to the webinar. My name is Gareth Limpany. I'm the MD of Frequency and will be your host today. The purpose of the webinar today is to help demystify mobile signal boosters, dispel one or two myths, explain some of the functionality, and ultimately be able to give you clarity on what's legal and what's not within the mobile signal boosting business. I hope you find the content of interest. We will be taking questions at the end of the webinar, so please feel free to ask those via the various chat boxes. And we'll have a Q&A session at the end. Today's presenters, I've briefly introduced myself, Gareth Limpany, MD, CEO of Frequency Telecom. I'm delighted that Colin Avery from Nextivity is joining us today. He's the VP of Channel Sales, EMEA, has a wealth of experience in the in-building coverage space. I'm delighted also to welcome Colin Giles, who's one of our sales leads at Frequency. So who are Cell5 and Nextivity? Nextivity is headquartered in San Diego, California, and they have global reach across Europe, Asia, and Australia. They've won numerous awards for their products. The Cell5 product is an unconditionally network safe, meaning it prevents interference with mobile operator networks, and it's the only mobile solution authorized for use in nearly 100 countries by over 200 mobile operators. Who are Frequency? We're very proud to be a master distributor of Cell5 products in the UK and Ireland. We have been a provider of mobile products in the UK and across Europe for over 20 years. The Cell5 products that we distribute is license exempt and fully meets all Ofcom requirements, and therefore you are able to sell those products with ease and peace of mind within the UK because they are license exempt. Other systems you may see, and we'll go through those later, you may see advertised often fall foul of this and are therefore illegal. I will now hand over to Colin Giles, who will give us some information why doesn't poor mobile coverage exist today. So, Colin, could you take over for me?
Thank you, Gareth. So it's certainly a big question within the industry. Why does poor mobile coverage exist today? I guess there's two main reasons. First of those is really the obstruction from the mobile network. It may not only be the distance between the building and the mobile mast that affects signal, but also what lies in between. For example, in rural locations, you may have buildings or trees that affect the signal getting to the building, so it finds it difficult to bend round those obstacles to reach the building, and that then means that the time the signal hits the building, it's particularly weak and can't penetrate through. Then in more central urban locations, you've got the fact that the building is surrounded or dwarfed by other buildings, and therefore it affects getting the signal through to all of the building. You may have the upper layers of the building having some signal, but by the time you get down to the lower floors, there's very little signal in that building. Second reason is really the building materials as well, and that plays a major part. If you think buildings with thick walls, particularly buildings such as in hospitals, buildings made from steel frame, and those that have windows with a certain metallic compound in them, all of these factors significantly reduce the ability for the outside signal to get into the building. And it's not just older buildings that suffer from mobile signal issues, also newer buildings as well. I think with modern day fire and health and safety regulations, and also the drive for greater energy efficiency and cheaper fuel bills, the issue is only going to is only ever going to be an increasing problem for property developers and owners looking to provide mobile coverage. And from a statistic point of view, how common is poor mobile coverage in building? Do we have some insight into that? And the answer is we do. And in short, really, the common, it's a lot more of a common problem than you may think. Statistics out there show that 80% of mobile phone calls are originated or take place in a building. So it's no surprise that with that amount of people, or that percentage of people making phone calls in a building, coupled with what we've mentioned in terms of issues with signal getting into a building with material, then you get a sense of scale on the size of the issue, and the problem, you know, from a building material point of view, is really only going to get worse. And it's not just a few offices or a particular building or such that's affected. You know, all industry sectors are affected. All geographical locations are affected, not just the rural, not spot areas that lack signal because of masts or issues, but also towns and cities are arguably more effective. And we know at Frequency, having spoken to our customers, we are being asked to look at issues that are more urban, more city focused than say in the countryside. So where are we with what's out there? What is the hype against what is the reality in terms of in-building coverage? You may, for those that have issues, there are theories around Wi-Fi solutions. For example, things like Wi-Fi calling. Now, Wi-Fi, can be fine for data. But it's not necessarily reliable enough when it comes to making a phone call on your mobile. While Wi-Fi is set up to handle data applications, you start seeing performance issues really with phone calls, particularly when you're moving around the building. You will start to notice, as many of our customers have found, start to notice issues with audio distortion and calls dropping when moving around or when mobile, and particularly when moving in and out of buildings. There is a high chance of calls dropping or failing, or again issues with audio quality. Also with Wi-Fi, it does require in a number of cases, particularly public Wi-Fi, for users to take that additional step to log on to a portal and register their device or provide the details, which some don't want to do, to be able to access Wi-Fi to then use those services. A lot of customers we talk to, their users just want to be able to walk into a building and use their phone for mobile services, whether it be voice or data. And again, some organisations such as banks don't allow their organisations to use Wi-Fi in the first place from a security point of view. So mobile coverage is relied upon both outside and in building in an increasing nature. Then we've got small cells or femto cells, as sometimes they're referred to. Small cells or femto cells are the same in principle as cells that are outside of a building, except that they are deployed and dedicated to that building, and they look to provide mobile services solely to the occupants of that building. However, that can be an expensive option, both on the initial outlay to deploy the solution and the ongoing cost to maintain that through monthly lease line fees. So the overall total cost of ownership can be significantly high. Also, deployment timescales for small cells tend to be a lot longer because it involves a fairly detailed design and process, which needs to be signed off both by the operator, the supplier, and sometimes the neutral host if they're involved, before a solution can actually go in and be deployed. And although there can be a significant amount of time spent on the design and planning side of a small cell solution, again, it's not 100% reliable. It is an RF solution at the end of the day, so there is the tendency for call dropouts and audio issues to be experienced in a similar way. The third point about mobile signal boosters, are they all legal? Are all mobile signals on the market legal? And the simple answer is no. Most of the boosters you find online are actually unlicensed wideband repeaters, which without operator approval or without the appropriate license are actually illegal to install. And if they are installed, then they do have an impact on network interference. They can cause harm to the mobile networks, and more importantly, to those that have it deployed. And an illegal solution can result in potential fines or the whole system being ripped out, causing issues to those that have it installed, and again the users of the building. You have those that, online that are promoted as having certain certifications, such as CE certification or perhaps ISO 9001. They are still illegal to deploy unless they are, chosen to do so by the mobile operators themselves. But in the vast majority, they are illegal. The only signal booster solution on the market that can be deployed without the need for operator license or approval is the Ofcom license exempt boosters. So it's very important that when you're researching signal boosters that are legal, that you look for those that carry the Ofcom license exempt stamp. And to date, Selfie product range is the only Ofcom license exempt solution on the market. Now, have mobile signal boosters, such as Selfie, when we talked about mainstream, is it mainstream? And the answer is no. It hasn't hit mainstream yet. And that's because really the Ofcom license exemption criteria is just over a little 2 years old. I guess at the time there wasn't an awful lot of hype or marketing done with the introduction of the UK license exemption law. I think if you did your research or you were involved in building solutions before, you may be aware of it if you followed the change in the legislation. But a lot of people, if they haven't been involved in it before, are still a bit wary of doing anything in this space because they still feel if they've looked online that the majority of the solutions out there are illegal. And I guess I think the other key thing is that most people still accept that mobile coverage, if they've got no signal in building, then it's just an issue that they have to live with as part of everyday life. So, part of this session, we're trying to change that perception and make people aware that there is something that can be done to change that opinion. So I'd like to hand back to Gareth, who will hand over to Colin.
Thank you, Colin. I'm going to hand over now to Colin Avery, who's joining us from Nextivity. Colin is the VP of Channel Sales EMEA. And I'll hand over to you now, Colin. Thank you.
Thanks, Gareth, and thanks, Colin. It's just sort of dawned on me that we've got a sort of Colin squared going on this morning, so hopefully that doesn't become too confusing for everybody. Colin's done a good job of providing an overview of the demand that's in the market for in-building coverage and the fact that demand is growing, and some of the issues around solution options and what is legal and what is not. So I want to try and do three things. I want to position where Selfie fits into the market for you so you can see the wealth of opportunity that there is with our solutions. I want to explain what is different about Selfie and why it is able to be compliant with Ofcom license exemption where other traditional solutions are not. And I want to look at the basics of how it works, essentially, across the product range. So thank you. So firstly, the opportunity then. The market for in-building coverage is very large, and I've been in the game for about 15 years now. My past experience has been largely at the top end of this pyramid, and these are solutions that Colin touched on, so the DAS and the small cell options that exist in the market. Those options provide coverage, but they also provide capacity. So they make sense for buildings that are large and have a large volume of users, so a high footfall of people moving through the buildings. So you will typically see them in large venues like airports, football stadiums, maybe large shopping malls, big corporate offices where you have thousands of people. And it makes sense. And we've tried to sort of bracket this out through building size, although the critical thing is actually the number of people in the building. So that's the top end of the market, small in volume, but high in value. Selfie then has a range of solutions that addresses everything from that sort of enterprise, medium to large building opportunity, all the way through to small, medium enterprise and SOHO workers, individuals in the consumer market. So we have a solution actually that fits the biggest part of the market, the higher volume part of the market. There are literally thousands of projects that are open to selfie deployments. So the key is to reach those projects. Thank you. If we can move on. So why is selfie able to be compliant with license exemption where traditional technologies are not? The key to this, actually Gareth mentioned at the beginning, is our unconditionally network safe protocol. All selfie solutions have a chipset at their core, so they are all intelligent. So right at the small area, entry-level product, all the way to our enterprise solution, they use a chip at the core, and that chip is able to do a number of things, including talk directly to the network and find out details about how the macro network is performing that area, what channels are being used, and is able to self-organize and fine-tune the selfie system to the environment that it's in, including setting game profiles, selecting channels to repeat into the building. So it is that network safe protocol that is the key to being compliant with license exemption. So license exemption asks for a number of things. You have to be able to manage those things like game profiles, calculation of link budget back to the base station, operating on one operator at a time basis, but being able to switch between them. There's a number of other technical specifications around that, but for any product to be compliant, it has to be able to dynamically adjust to all of that. We use our chip to do that. Traditional repeaters are not able to adapt to do that, and they're typically providing a wide band, so the entire bandwidth, including the noise and the duplex spacings and so on. So the issue for them is that they create noise in the operator's network, and ultimately that's a big concern for the operators, and is why those devices are not legal under license exemption in the UK. So the key to us is that network safe capability. In addition to that, we have other advantages in that our game profiles are higher, so we are able to apply something in the order of about 1,000 times more gain. The significance of that is that you can use our solutions closer to the edge of coverage in weaker signal areas, and you will still have a quality boosted signal in the building. And linked to our network safe protocols is an ability to self-organize and fine-tune our system. So that makes it very quick to deploy, brings the total cost of ownership down, and ultimately for the end user provides a peace of mind that they would not have with another solution. So Ofcom are not going to turn up at the door and tell you that you're using a system that is illegal to use, because it's not illegal, it's legal, and therefore you will not be in a position where Ofcom are beating your door down for that type of issue. Okay, if we can move on. In addition to our hardware, we provide a complete solution wrap around our product. So when you're acquiring the solution, you're also acquiring the software that supports that solution. So we have various apps and an online monitoring system that are designed to support and improve the experience of the end user and the services that can be offered by the system integrator. So there are apps that sit on Android and iOS devices that are able to monitor a system, set up the system, help with antenna alignment and that sort of thing so that you can optimize the quality of the installation. In addition, we have the Wave Portal. That Wave Portal allows the installer to monitor certain solutions within the system. We'll look at that in a second on a live basis, so that a proactive maintenance service can be provided to ensure the end user that the investment they're making will be running for the maximum time. You don't have to wait for it to fail before you know that there's something, there's an issue on the system. So that can all be managed proactively via the certified installer. So all of that software comes with the product. We don't charge license fees. We don't charge for the software applications. That's all part of the solution when you're buying a Selfie device. Okay. Looking at the product range then, looking back to the pyramid, I said that we have solutions that take you from a single user all the way through to an enterprise, scalable enterprise solution. The range, therefore, starts with the Selfie Prime. The Prime is designed and targeted towards I suppose, a relatively small area coverage with a small number of users, and it's designed to be self-install. So the idea is you have a signal at a window, you put the device in the window, plug it in across the other side of the room, and the software will do all of the rest for you. So there's no complicated setup to do. The system will configure itself and balance itself for the operator that you select. So very straightforward, self-install, small area, 1 or 2 bedroom department type of application. We then have the Selfie Solo. The Selfie Solo is targeted towards home use and small, medium enterprise, maybe retail, smaller retail stores and restaurants. It's a commercial grade solution. It will, again, it has all the protocols that sit within the Selfie solution. So you put an antenna up, you switch the system on, select the operator, and it will then balance itself out for that operator in that specific location. It's designed to cover up to about 1,500 square meters. Again, sort of focused into that small, medium enterprise style application. We then have the GoX. GoX operates on a very similar basis to Solo, but it is in a ruggedized case. So it's IP66 rated, so protection against moisture and dust. It's also, the case itself is ruggedized, hardened, so it can take a bit of an impact if that happens. So we tend to focus this more towards industrial style applications, so small manufacturing locations, pumping stations, power stations, that type of environment where it's a little bit harsher. Although it can be used in any environment, of course, but with that ruggedized nature, it's more suited to that industrial application. We then have Selfie Quattro. Selfie Quattro is the enterprise solution, the scale of an enterprise solution that will be deployed into medium to large offices, larger warehousing facilities, hospitals, hotels, those type of buildings where the scale is getting up a little bit. So we tend to focus that into those environments up to about 50,000 square meters. Although, as I said earlier, the issue is more about the footfall than the pure size. So we have applications that go into larger buildings than that, but ultimately scalable and ultimately able to use, and we'll get onto this in a second, the existing infrastructure in the building. Looking at the basics of how it works. So the idea is you deploy an antenna that we refer to as the donor antenna. That's the antenna that is picking up the signal from the macro network. That antenna connects to the device via coax cable. The device will then listen to what's in the macro network. We'll look at the channels available to it, the performance of those channels that are available, and we'll select the best channels to repeat into the building. So again, all of that happens automatically. There's no complex setup to be done. It will select the best performing signals and will repeat the best performing signals into the building from the options that are available in the macro network. In the case of the Solo and the GoX, you connect to in-building antennas that we call server antennas. It could be one antenna connected to a device. It could be 2 or 3 antennas connected to that device, depending on the shape of the building. Those antennas are connected via coax, as I say, in the case of Solo and GoX. If we can move on. Looking at Selfie Quattro, I've already sort of outlined where we are unique as a solution. Quattro has another stage of uniqueness to it. So the network, so you'll see in the diagram, we have a device called the network unit. The network unit connects to the donor antenna via coax, just as it would in the Solo and GoX example. The network unit has all the intelligence in it. That's the device that's monitoring the channels available and optimizing the Selfie solution based on the macro conditions in the location that it's in. It will then digitize that signal and distribute the signal through the building on structured cabling. The minimum spec for that structured cabling is 5E. So in essence, it will be able to use existing architecture in the building if that is available and is going to the right locations for the coverage units. That existing infrastructure can be used in a Quattro network. So you'll see the network unit is therefore distributing to coverage units. Each network unit will support up to 4 coverage units. If this building was twice the height, then you would simply have a second network unit connected to the same antenna, and you can now scale to a building that's twice the size. Okay. The Quattro system, as I said, can be monitored on a live basis. So the installer will see this deployment live in their Wave portal, and will be able to offer any end customers that are on the call, offer a maintenance service, a proactive fix and repair service. So before the end customer ever knows the system has a fault or any move towards something that looks like it might become a fault, then proactively the system integrator can come and resolve that issue. That capability is also available on an option within Solo as well. So Solo can also be monitored on a live basis. Okay. If we can move on, I think I'm now handing back over to Colin.
Thanks for that, Colin. Really good examples of the type of products and 1 or 2 of the kind of solutions in terms of installation that the Selfie range of products works with them. I think what's also very important is we've tried to outline the strengths of the system, the license exempt, but it's also now quite important to show some kind of live examples of where we, either via ourselves or via our reseller partners, that the product is live, and Colin Giles will kind of run through 3 of those examples before we deal with any questions.
Thank you, Gareth. Yeah, so I want to touch on 3 examples of successful installations of Selfie deployments involving, as Colin mentioned, the Selfie products, Quattro, GoX, and Selfie Solo. So the first one I want to pick up on is the Welsh Ambulance Service. This was an example of a Selfie Quattro deployment. The Welsh Ambulance had recently moved into their new headquarters, brand spanking new office. The only issue being that they had no mobile signal when they moved in, and they only discovered that when they moved in. Primarily due to the materials used in the building affecting the signal. There was great signal outside the building, but absolutely nothing inside the building. So the Welsh Ambulance contacted us. We then, through some consultative sessions, reviewing plans, understanding the requirements, suggested that the Selfie Quattro solution would probably be the best fit. That was confirmed during a site survey, and the Quattro solution was accepted by the Welsh Ambulance as the most effective, cost-effective solution for what they needed. The solution was deployed in 3 working days, and by the end of it, they had great mobile coverage across their new office. So that macro signal that was outside providing good service was also inside providing good mobile service to the users. And they use their phones, they need their mobile phones to respond to incidences. And also it's used as a backup to some of their systems that uses the fixed line service. So it was important for them that as a failover system, they had the backup mobile network in place. And importantly, as the emergency services and the blue light services move to a new emergency service, which is going to be driven by EE's 4G coverage, it places the Welsh Ambulance Service in a very good position to take advantage of the upcoming new ESN network. As it comes into effect, they'll have good 4G coverage, or they have good 4G coverage in the building, that when it's rolled out, that they're well placed and can utilise that. The second example is with Pure Offices. This is an example of a successful GoX, Self-I GoX installation. Pure Offices, they're a leading provider in the UK of managed office space or serviced offices. And that sector is, in this day and age, fiercely competitive through decentralisation of offices. More people are looking at, more companies are looking at serviced offices. And key to the serviced office proposition is, great services, including connectivity. With Pure Offices, they had tenants across a number of sites complaining about a lack of mobile coverage in the building, impacting their clients, their tenants, from being able to conduct business. There were reports of tenants having to go outside of the office to make a phone call, or even go outside of the building just to be heard by their customers. So there's a lot of frustration both with customers and to Pure Offices as well. The initial site, which was Nottingham, was identified as a sort of trial case or a pilot. So we worked with them, we reviewed the plans, we assessed what was needed, and for their case, they wanted to provide better coverage across all the networks, across all floors of their office. So we reviewed the plans, we suggested from an effective point of view and a cost point of view, the Self-I GoX would be the best fit for them. The site survey that followed confirmed that 12 GoX and 4 external antennas as part of the solution, those Self-I elements would provide the required coverage needed. And following 4 days of installation, it was completed, and the Pure Offices in Nottingham were able to benefit from much improved coverage. Their customers were particularly happy. The feedback was very positive. They said that of all the technology solutions they put in place, this was the one that gave 100% feedback from their tenants. So they were obviously delighted. They commissioned Frequency and our partners to roll the system out to 6 other Pure Office sites in the UK. And by the end of August 2020, we have now commissioned Self-I GoX across 7 of their Pure Office sites. And the feedback is that all 7 sites and all of their staff and tenants are happy with what's been deployed. So it just means that the whole, all of their customers are happier. From Pure Office's point of view, it reinforces from their point of view, that they're able to offer a premium service. The opportunity to maximise rental charges is important for them. Yet rental yields is their key revenue driver, so they're able to maximise that through offering a great service, including mobile connectivity, and puts them in a competitive advantage in this competitive industry, as we've said. Third example is a very recent example where we've deployed the Self-I Solo solution in with a company called Landis & Gear. Now, they're a leading manufacturer of gas and electricity equipment to that market. Again, similar to the Welsh Ambulance, they moved into a new office in Manchester. finished to a very high specification according to our survey team. So modern mod cons and high fixtures and furnishings were in place. But again, because of the materials used, there was very poor signal in the building. The staff use mobiles. It's their device. The mobile phone is the device of choice for mobile connectivity. They do have corporate SIMs, but they do also operate a BYOD, a bring your own device policy. So they were keen to look at a solution that covered all networks, not just for the employees to be able to communicate, but also to facilitate the testing and the rollout of the next generation smart meters, which use mobile connectivity to implement the solution. So again, reviewing plans, reviewing the requirements, we suggested that the Self-Eye solar solution would be the most appropriate. And again, a site survey confirmed that to be the case. So we went ahead and proposed, the customer was happy to go ahead with 8 Self-Eye solos and 4 external antennas to give them the in-building coverage that they needed. And after, again, 3 days of completing installation, the building enjoyed 5 bars of full coverage throughout both floors of the building. The feedback again from the team was the client side was that the solution did what it needed in the time frame that they needed, and very much in the budgets that they had wanted the solution or were looking to spend on improved mobile connectivity. The staff are obviously now coming back to the office, and the feedback from speaking to them last week is that the staff are very happy that there is mobile connectivity and they can use their phones, and also from a testing point of view that they're able to continue with their smart metering testing program and fulfill their part in rolling out or implementing the government's multi-million-pound smart meter program. So that was a couple of examples, a few examples of where we've successfully deployed Self-Eye within different industry sectors.
Fantastic. Thank you, Colin. The webinar we've been doing today will be emailed to you all. I hope you found it of interest. And obviously, we're now going to deal with some questions and answers, but should you have any kind of additional questions or want to get more information from us, then please feel free to get in contact with us, and we'll be glad to spend some time speaking to you. A couple of questions that we've been asked, and please feel free now to ask some additional questions if you wish. Do I need to change the infrastructure of the building to deploy the signal boosters? I think Colin covered that slightly, but Colin, Avery, are you able to expand on that one for us, please?
Yes, absolutely. So with the Quattro, as we were discussing, that will use existing twisted pair structured cabling infrastructure that's available in the building, as long as it is Cat 5e or better, which I think pretty much all buildings are these days. So there's a clear sort of reuse of infrastructure from the Quattro position. But actually, we're finding that there's a reuse of infrastructure for both Solo and Go as well, because they, to some extent, are going into replacement of illegal systems. So we have a number of hospitals, for example, that have suffered the dreaded Ofcom knock on the door, and they will be decommissioning the illegal systems and replacing those with Self-Eye solutions. And those Self-Eye solutions can use the passive coax infrastructure that was installed as part of the illegal repeater deployment.
Perfect. Thank you. The next question is, do they work on more than one network? Again, Colin, I'm going to throw this back to you again.
Okay, that's fine. So Ofcom license exemption specifically requires that the device must support one operator at a time. So there is a license exemption rule that means that we have to only repeat the services from one operator at a time. That said, Ofcom also says that the device must be switchable between operators. So clearly we have that capability as well. So in terms of things like return on investment, reuse of asset, those type of important questions that businesses will have, if a system is deployed today for EE coverage, let's say, and then in 12 months' time, the corporate decides they want to change their corporate provider, then they can change to another mobile network operator, and it is a simple software change to switch the system to support that new provider, so O2. So it is one at a time, but our systems are capable of supporting any of the operators.
One system in the building to boost kind of more than one operator at a time.
Yeah, exactly. If you need all 4 operators, then you will need 4 systems, and as I say, that's a regulatory requirement. So, and to be honest, it's been implemented as part of the regulatory, actually, to ensure that wideband repeaters remain illegal and are not used in the network, because those wideband repeaters are the ones that are creating noise and interference on the mobile network, on their networks, and essentially, any way you deploy a traditional style wideband repeater, it will be noticed by the operator because it will increase the interference on the base station that it's repeating. So you will find typically Ofcom turning up at the door and requesting that they are removed. So it's an important part of the license exemption requirements that we have to implement. It so happens that that's exactly how our devices work anyway. So it's not a special requirement for us, but it is something that clearly we have to adhere to from the license exemption.
You've just handled the lovely the last question that we had, which was what was the impact of the illegal boosters. So
okay,
you've covered that off quite nicely. So we don't have any other kind of questions to answer. Again, we thank you very, very much for giving up your time this morning, for listening. We hope that's been of interest and of use to you. And please feel free to get in contact, and we will soon be sending to you the video of today's webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.